And actually, this is why we need conversation in the workplace where there's a trusted person to talk to. Because we can say, I don't think she really meant it that way. I think maybe she's struggling with something. Maybe what you can accept is this, and the rest of it you don't own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need
Good
each
job.
other to tell.
Super excited to be interviewing Donna. She is not only a colleague and a professional author, but my friend too. So, so we're gonna get deep in.
Makes me happy.
Yeah. So let's just start with introducing yourself professionally. How would you introduce yourself professionally?
I have been in business development and customer relationship management for 35 years. That makes me feel really old now that I'm closer to 60 than I am to 50. But what I am a nut for customer experience, and in that, I'm also kind of a database geek, and I never really thought, how do I merge these two? And I can't believe it took me so long. What I do now is I help CEOs with their business development strategy, their processes and systems, which often means we need to get a CRM so that you are following up with your customers. So that's I've done so many things up until this day, and I finally feel like I've found like exactly where my talents flow.
But you've written a book. Crazy.
And I wrote a book.
Not crazy. You like this word.
I use the word crazy, and oftentimes when people ask, how are you doing? I'll say, crazy, as usual.
Yeah.
And that became my Instagram handle. And I said, that would be a good name for a book. And so when I wrote it and I got some feedback and one person wanted to change the name, I said, sorry, I already bought the domain. No. But it's on purpose. And I know you work in mental health, and I always have to say for those in the mental health field, we don't use the word crazy lightly.
Right.
If I use it to talk about how I feel, it's very different than me saying you're crazy.
Right.
And I want to normalize the conversation about mental health at work.
Yeah.
And this is mostly because I have crashed and burned multiple times.
Well,
and after a series of incidents in self-sabotage, I realized, okay, it's time for us to normalize this conversation.
Well, and I think it's the perfect title because women and our emotions have been pegged as neurotic, crazy for a long time. But it's a part of who we are. The way that we interact with the world is different. Everything is emotionally connected, and when we try to deny that, it makes us feel crazy.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, and it's only when we try to deny it. And this is why I'm trying to elevate, normalize this conversation by seeking community in the workplace, finding someone who's safe to talk to. You may not form a group at work,
right?
But you can form a friendship. They don't have to be your best friend. You know, Gallup has a survey that asks you have a best friend at work.
Yeah.
Well, it's not supposed to be the person you go on every vacation with. We're talking about the person you can go to and say, you know, when the boss said that in there, am I crazy or did I, you know, what did that mean? And if she's a good friend, she's going to say, you know what, I think you need to go ask her.
Yeah.
You need to clarify before you go forward so you don't go in the wrong direction. We need someone to help us redirect, and especially when those emotions start to just sabotage our presence of mind, we've got to have someone to say, okay, I'm reeling you back in. And one time in the workplace, I was having a panic attack. And it was the first time I'd had a severe panic attack where my heart rate was elevated. I was having a hard time focusing, having a hard time controlling my emotions. So I called the second in command and I asked him to come to my office, and I said, you've got to help me out here because I am diving off a cliff and I have got to assemble myself. And he sat and asked me questions and comforted me, and it was so...
What a great experience.
Yeah.
Because many people, probably more often women, are poo-pooed.
Right.
In that, especially in that professional corporate setting of get it together or get out.
Exactly. Like, I'm going to be pegged as someone who's unreliable or someone who's not high performing. At the time, I wasn't high performing. I was in desperate need of help. I needed help mentally. My husband was in a severe depression, and I was going through some physical issues. I needed someone to say, I see you.
Yeah.
What can I do to help? How can I support? And instead, I got, you're late. Why are you crying? Don't cry in meetings.
Yeah.
You know.
But this one second in command guy, he got it. He was able.
Well, he's a really generous, kind-hearted, loving. We share the same faith. And so it was really easy for me to say, I know how I'm supposed to be, and I can't find it right now. So he was a safe person for me to talk to.
So what would you say to that corporate woman right now that they want to succeed, they want to be successful in this corporate space, but they're really struggling and they don't know how to manage those two, what feels like different personalities?
Exactly. We need to give ourselves a little compassion, permission to have that conversation in a really authentic way. I can honestly say that the best leader I've ever worked for is also one of the funniest people I know and the most compassionate person I've ever met in the workplace. So we don't have to mask our feelings with this bravado.
Yes.
In fact, I would
say it, girl.
I would challenge that if, somebody actually mentioned to me a little over a month ago, you are very intimidating. And I'm like, who are you talking to? I'm intimidating? And he said, oh yeah, I've scheduled coffee with everyone in this group except for you. And I'm like, okay, so that's all the information I got at the time. So I got to walk away and wonder, what do I do to be intimidating? And I realized, you know what? If I'm feeling insecure, I will put my mask on.
Yeah.
And the best way for us to have influence in the workplace, whether up or down in terms of level, is to be ourselves. And the best way to encourage employee retention, the best way to encourage faith and trust is to be ourselves and not work so hard to fake it that we internalize that anxiety and it becomes disease in our body.
Yeah. I love that. Not work so hard to fake it and be real. And you know, I've had this as an employer of that balance of, because we are a place where we want you to be open and things like that, that then there's a little bit too much of me, you know, I have an issue and then therefore I can't do my job. And you know, as a corporate person, we have to keep our employees productive or we can't pay the payroll, right? So let's switch the lens for me for a second of, okay, you know, I have 49 employees. I want to be that employer where people feel safe, but I also need to have that productivity. How do we practically continue that balance?
Boundaries.
Yeah, talk about that.
There's a disarming measure that helps us to win trust, to diffuse any anxiety with our employees. Just a smile, a personal comment before we launch into business. But then sometimes, you know, when we have to turn it into a hard situation, and I learned this when I got to be like on the front line of leadership at the Center for Creative Leadership. I was a business partner. I wasn't a teacher there. Okay. So I got to learn from the best. And what I learned in leadership is that if we will ask more questions instead of assert that we know everything, and if we can show genuine care and concern, but also like even shifting the body language to say, I have this priority that I need your help with. So rather than saying you have a problem, I'm saying I have a situation that I need to deal with, and I need you to step up to this level for us to be able to carry this through.
Yeah.
And then ask, do you feel any way that you can't, are you equipped to do this? Is there any way you're not equipped to do this? Is there any way I can equip you to do this?
Yeah.
So many times in corporate culture these days, the default mode is, well, if you're not doing it perfectly, I'm just going to fire you and hire somebody else. And that is expensive for the organization. It's emotionally expensive for the employee.
And for us too, because we're, and this is where I am currently developing, right?
Yeah.
Like I see both sides. And I can see, I've been told that some of my employees are scared of me, and I'm like, if they knew how emotional and empathetic I was, they would not be scared of me. But this is where I'm trying to develop, because I think what happens is because I am so empathetic, and I'm scared to really care for this person, because what if I do have to let them go, right? So then I'm showing that face that we're talking about, that I really don't want to, but it's my own coping or defense mechanism as I'm trying to grow a business and be productive and care for people at the same time.
Well, and you have to do that. And that's why I said there's a kind of a shift in demeanor, maybe a shift in facial expression or body language when we go from, I'm glad you're okay, I'm glad things are going well. I just want to, talk about, if we can point back to your KPIs, go back to metrics. In most cases, the data will tell the whole story.
Right.
And if somebody knows what's expected of them when they're hired, and you're just reviewing their performance to date, it really takes the responsibility off of your shoulders to explain why you're not happy, because you can look at the KPIs and say, what are we going to do to improve this? What can I do to equip you? And maybe it's a matter of connecting that employee with somebody outside the organization. I mean, in a lot of the conversations I'm having, contact mentally strong. But in smaller businesses, the HR department is so overwhelmed, they don't know how to refer out.
Right.
In fact, I've been in a situation before where I ended up resigning, and I did tell the HR director that, if I had had some help regarding my mental health, I don't think this issue would have happened. I think I would have found a solution, and I think I would still be here. And I just want you to know that, so that maybe you can increase your employee retention. If you can learn how to spot burnout from a distance and offer a line, then maybe we can keep people from going over the edge.
Yeah. Well, talk to me. Let's kind of go back to that moment where you weren't well, right? And if you're willing to kind of vulnerably tell us, about this anxiety, how it was manifesting, and how you got to this. Now you're teaching people how to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, teaching, use that word lightly. At several moments when I was writing the book, the monkeys, the book talks about managing the monkeys that keep you from believing that you're actually brilliant.
Right.
And I've had
so tell us, describe monkeys first, and then we're going to go to that place where the monkeys were not in control.
In that place, yeah. I have a long-standing relationship with my child self. And in the process of writing the book, I discovered that the time that I first started to believe that maybe I'm fundamentally flawed or I'm not enough, I thought it started with not getting invited to Donna Taylor's 5th grade birthday party. I was the only girl in the class to not be invited. Now, when I go back and reflect on that time, I had 2 alcoholic parents. I had a birthday party where my parents were pretending to serve alcoholic drinks to all the kids. They were just pink lemonade and crushed ice.
Mm-hmm.
But they were
Right.
making them look like cocktails. Well, I can guarantee you that those Baptist kids were going home and telling their parents that they had cocktails at the Robinson house.
Yeah.
And I know as an adult that that's why I was excluded, but that feeling of not being good enough and not being accepted and not being liked has plagued me. Every time I get a funny look from somebody, she doesn't like me. Every time somebody says, I don't want you on my team, oh, she doesn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what you call the monkeys.
And that's
these little
and
negative thoughts.
That the monkeys are chattering, oh, she doesn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that familiar voice.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like you. Oh, she doesn't like you. She doesn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many taunting ways that we can hear that voice. And we have to really learn how to rechannel that. There's so many people who've written books and talked on podcasts and provided all kinds of instructions on how to remap those neural networks.
Yeah.
It's still hard to do when you're in the moment.
Yes.
So, I was in this job, the monkeys of she doesn't like you. I was managing several people, the monkeys of she doesn't respect you. Mm. They were plaguing my thoughts to the point that I started to believe them. Mm-hmm. And you know that the more we start to feed ourselves those messages, the more we get sucked into actually making them true.
Yeah.
Because we second
Well, and I
guess.
can share mine. Not good enough, I think, is a very common one.
Yes.
But mine is you're not smart. And when I was, I have ADD, and I choose not to treat it. But I've had it since I was a kid, and I just thought I was not smart because I couldn't complete academics. I couldn't read and answer those stupid questions at the end of the paragraph, and I could do math because it was like those simple steps. But anything you had to like read and then answer questions, I did not do well, and I now know that that's where the I'm not smart comes from, right? Yeah. Because in the academic realm, I wasn't smart, right? Now after building a multi-million-dollar business, I'm pretty smart, right?
Having a PhD, but probably okay.
But what happens is anybody who like criticizes me, that's immediately where that damn monkey comes back in. Yeah. You didn't get that, you didn't notice those numbers, how did you miss this?
Exactly.
You're not, and it goes back to that stupid, I'm not smart. And even though I think I've proven to myself, which a lot of my accomplishments were about proving myself, right? Yeah. Even with all of that, it still comes back. So it's an active process of even when you learn, you're still growing. And I have to say, it's not that I'm not smart,
Absolutely.
And maybe if I chose to treat my ADD, I would have. But yeah.
And I've wondered if I have ADD because I get so distracted. And I have multitasking. I crash so many computers because I have so many windows open. There is that monkey on this side saying, Donna, do one thing at a time. But then there's the monkey on this shoulder who says, oh no, go do that real quick. Or, oh, you owe this. And, it's this constant battle back and forth. And I'm like, do I have ADD or am I just overwhelmed or what is it? But when we start listening to those monkeys, it crashes in. Mm-hmm. I think in that work situation, the combination between the monkeys telling me that I'm not respected, I'm not trusted, I can't run my own domain, somebody has to tell me what to do all the time, and I've been a CEO before, I think I know how to do this. And it was making me feel crazy. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to battle out of that. And yet I came home to a husband with severe depression because of a physical problem that he had been battling for 5 years. And so I'm like, I have no happy place to go to. Mm-hmm. It was hard. And so when I started to have physical issues, which led to bloating, I couldn't fasten my pants anymore. Mm. So then I didn't look very professional because I was limited to 3 pair of pants and 2 dresses. Mm. And it just compounded for me. And I remember the day, that I realized that there was something really at risk. I was looking at my computer and doing, squinting at my computer, which was right there. It was one of those,
Yeah.
And it wasn't a matter of the fact that I couldn't see the computer. It is that my head hurt so bad that I was squinting my eyes because I just wanted to lay down. And it was just this pressure building. And I think it was just a combination of gritting my teeth because I'm just going to make it through, and I'm going to go home and drink 2 glasses of wine and go to bed and get up and do it again. And my body started to say, you can't do this. Yeah. So then my body started to shut down. That's when all kinds of things didn't work.
Right. And that's often, and we don't like to talk about this, but that's often what a panic attack is.
Yeah.
You're pushing your body to its limit, and you're not actually getting control of those monkeys, right?
Yeah.
Those thoughts that are just, eating away at your self-esteem.
Yeah. And people who are really nice, who love you very much, will say, well, you can't think that, or you're brilliant. Didn't Steve tell you how brilliant you are? And you, start thinking of, I think a few people have told me I'm smart. But when one person doesn't trust you, it makes you question everybody.
Yeah.
It makes me question whether those people are lying to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it always goes back to that, but I'm not good enough. Like,
right.
I could be very proud of myself and still feel like I'm not good enough.
You know why it is, though? I just read this in a book. I read so many books, I can't remember where I read this, but we don't compare ourselves to other people. We compare ourselves to our best selves.
Yep.
And if I think I'm supposed to be smarter than I am, if I think I'm supposed to know more than I do, instead of being curious and asking questions, I sit there and incriminate myself. And I was at a meeting with my boss one time. She's brilliant, she's smart, she knows so much stuff. And she was having this conversation with high-level people in our organization and asking questions that I couldn't answer. And I was just glad she wasn't asking me. She was asking other people. And I'm like, I'm going to shrink so nobody asks me a question because I am terrified. I have no idea what we're talking about. And when I have to leave a conversation and go and look things up, it makes me wonder if I'm not smart enough. Now, really smart people I know are confident enough to say, back up, can you explain that?
Right.
That's a normal thing.
Yeah.
People with PhDs have to ask, can you define that? Wait, what was that acronym again? We're not supposed to know everything.
Yeah.
But I think because I was an orphan as a child, I can't.
So your parents are not your biological parents?
No, I had no. My parents. I was orphaned first by alcohol.
Okay.
Then my mom left. My dad raised me until he died, and then my sister took me in, which was sweet. They kept us out of the
system.
Yeah, and her husband walked me down the aisle.
Aww.
But I grew up with this deficit of parenting, and I kept thinking, people with parents know how to do this. And I've studied a lot on the orphan heart, and
I'm an orphan child architect.
Oh, okay.
Archetype for sure.
Okay, so you get well, and what I've learned is that you don't have to be without parents to be an orphan.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I have. My dad died when I was 10 months old, and I had a mom. She was there. She was trying her hardest.
Right.
But yeah, I'm definitely an orphan child.
Probably a good example of someone whose mother was present but not emotionally available, and she didn't teach you the things that a lot of mothers teach their daughters.
Yeah.
So I went into adulthood going, I don't know how to do this. I did learn which fork to eat with if I was at a fancy dinner.
I still don't know.
Well, and you know what? I reached a point in my early adulthood when some people in my life are putting extreme pressure on me to know these things. And especially, I grew up in Texas. There's a hierarchical culture in Texas. And you're supposed to know certain rules of social etiquette.
Yeah.
And I decided, I don't subscribe to that. Can I just be myself and lean on love and curiosity? And if I don't know something, I'm going to laugh at myself.
And at what age did you get to that point of knowing that?
That was about 21.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I didn't feel awful about myself when I learned one more thing I didn't know. Well, even my college roommate. When my first roommate came to move into the dorm, I was sitting at my desk. I had moved in. I was all unpacked, and I was eating peanut butter on crackers, which was my dinner, because I put myself through college with scholarships and 3 jobs, and I was on the 10-meal-a-week plan. So while they were moving in and out, I was sitting there eating peanut butter and reading a book. And after they finished, they said, well, we're going to go have dinner right now. Have you had dinner? And I just went, yes, ma'am. And she said, is that your dinner? I said, yes, ma'am. And so her mom took me to dinner. A week later, we argued about something stupid, and my roommate said, I can't believe you haven't sent my mother a thank you note. And I went, oh, really? Yeah. I mean, most of our mothers teach us to do this.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing. My kids are really good at thank you notes. I will never forget
because it was ingrained in you.
Yeah.
I don't do thank you notes, and now I feel guilty.
Well, it's funny. It's not meant to make anyone feel
I know.
guilty.
But it's like when those moments in your life of that was a direct reminder, because you had no idea that was even a thing.
I'm insufficient. Am I fundamentally flawed? How am I supposed to know? What else do I not know that I don't know? And I remember a few years later, somebody was telling me something that needed correction. And I said, I had no idea. And I said, can you tell me everything else that's wrong with me? And she said, no.
I don't have the time. No,
sorry. God's going to show you what you need to know as you have the ability to learn it.
Right.
And you don't need to learn it all at once. It'll crush you.
Yeah.
But heck, I'm 57. I'm still learning these things. And I finally just decided, well, that's one more thing I'm not good at. And I was
saying, obviously with my story, I've been through a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I ever can I stop and rest? Like,
yes, can I just be there?
But you can stop and rest, and I did learn but it is a lifetime journey, and that's why we call this podcast "Embrace the Journey," because we are all on a mental health journey.
Yeah.
And let's embrace it. Let's continue to improve.
Yeah.
Except when things come your way to say, oh, okay. That's something else I need to improve on. And
right.
Yeah.
Well, that accepting is critical to our mental well-being, because if we keep thinking we need to be something else, we're never going to reach a point where we can just breathe. And I got really sick last week. Case in point, more heaped up expectations. Threw a big 60th birthday party for my husband. 4-day weekend. People came from out of town. Food, wine, old fashions, which is one of our favorite cocktails. Just totally indulgent weekend. And on Sunday night, my gallbladder was pissed off. And it got worse and worse and worse. I had to fast for an entire week, drinking nothing but juiced purple cabbage.
To get it to calm down,
Yeah. And I realized, wow. I mean, I really can't live like I'm that young anymore. And I spent an entire day in my bathrobe just nursing myself, hot pads, baths, and just asking God to just show me, what do I need to do to get my life to a point that I don't crash like this? Because it just feels like it impacts so many different things. People, I was late on projects, I couldn't deliver things, I had to cancel appointments. And the bottom line was, Donna, just slow down. Would you breathe? When you're doing the dishes, just go slow. You won't break so many wine glasses. Just slow down and try to do one thing at a time. And it's not a matter of anything you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that you're doing so many things. And maybe you just need to be more forgiving when you don't meet your expectations. Because, I make a plan. I'm a professional. I plan out my hours at the beginning of the week. And
I get this decision fear of if I make a decision, because being a CEO, running a company, like you have to make decisions. Like you can't just sit on things. You have to make a decision. And I get like, yeah, but once I make that decision, what if it's the wrong decision?
Right.
Even from, and we'll talk offline, I got to make a decision on a CRM for the company.
Oh,
happens to be your
happens to be my area of expertise. Have I already told you I'm a CRM consultant?
Yeah. Well, now we will definitely talk about that. But like that decision, but then things like this happen, and I go, well, that was providential that I hadn't made the decision yet, because now I just found out that Donna
level of expertise to consult.
So, and I'm constantly trying to balance that executive, like, quick decision makers move businesses faster.
Exactly.
Statistics say that that's true.
Yeah.
And like the prudency and providential letting things align, which obviously happened here. So that's another area that I'm growing in, because like you, I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
Most business books are written by men.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great content in there. I'm not saying that it's not great content. And even a lot of the self-development books are written by men. Our brains are different.
Yeah.
And there is an emotional element to our success that typical gender-specific, typical masculine men don't have, right?
Yeah.
And so when I read those books and I'm trying to execute and trying to be a good leader, a good CEO, but then, balancing that out. So that's where I am in that journey of, being a CEO, being a professional woman and things like that.
Don't we all? This is why we need peer support. And
plug in for the Women's Professional Organization, for sure.
I think the Women Presidents Organization has, for me, become a really great safe place. Mm-hmm. When I took the role as the local chapter leader, I told the gal who tried to recruit me, I said, I don't have time to do this. And she said, but the world needs you. Colorado Springs needs you to do this.
Oh.
And sure enough, I had a great response.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people who need to be in that group aren't yet, mm-hmm. but they will.
Yeah.
Because, somebody said, I recruited a new member who isn't starting yet because she can't make it to this meeting mm-hmm. this week. And she said, are they really 2 hours long? Like 11, 12, 3 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours long. Oops. And I said, yes, and there's a reason for it. And mm-hmm. you won't regret it once you experience this. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, once everyone experienced it, they went, oh, now I see why they're 3 hours long.
Because, you have this idea that you're going to be, like, teaching me for 3 hours. Yeah.
Oh. Well,
and no, we're
who
sitting
wants to
around,
hear me talk for 3 hours? Mm-hmm. In fact, anytime I'm teaching anything, it's more about an interactive question and answer, sit at your group and talk. I mean, who wants to listen to anyone talk that long? Mm-hmm. In fact, we limit presentations, but the bottom line is, once we talk about those monkeys that we have as leaders, mm-hmm. We realize we're not alone. Yeah. And even though we don't leave with the answer, we leave knowing, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who feels this way. And I have to make a note on the decision making. Mm-hmm. It's important to be able to make decisions quickly mm-hmm. because you will destroy your confidence if you sit and stew about it. It'll mm-hmm. just add to the stress. But when you're making a decision on a major technology investment, it's not a good idea to make a decision quickly. Okay. I have a whole system for processing how to compare, how to create a decision matrix around what you need and what you don't need. Mm-hmm. And you have to have good processes. So there are times when fast decisions are important, and there are times when you need to tell yourself, I won't make a decision until I have these 5 things.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's definitely helpful.
Good.
So let's go back, because we kind of...
You haven't made me cry yet.
Well, okay, let's go there. So you quit your job, you resigned. Uh-huh. I need to take care of my mental health. Take me back to that, Donna. How old were you? You'd been successful your whole life, Even like getting yourself through college, like you're driven. You're a driven person.
I am.
And you resigned from a job openly because you needed to take care of your mental health.
Well, and I resigned for a job because I also discovered I had made a mistake in the budget. And that's embarrassing. I run my own organization. I'm a former CEO. And when I was in a
Thank
meeting,
you for being honest and like vulnerable. Like I made a huge mistake. Yeah.
well, I know no one's going to want to hire me now. Just don't ask me to manage your budget. I've really made an intense effort to increase my knowledge in the area of financial management, and I continue to. I just went to a seminar last weekend. When I see a gap in myself, I will work to fill it. Yeah. I have become a student of financial literacy. I have a daughter who's majoring in finance to teach financial literacy. And this makes me feel like this is my contribution to the world. Harvey's going to solve this for everybody. But for me, I'm not afraid that no one's going to hire me. But in the moment that we discovered that I'd made this error in the budget.
What were the monkeys telling you that day? The day that you realized that this was your fault?
Yeah, the first monkey was, I told you don't know how to do a budget. And the second monkey said, you are so underqualified for this role. And another monkey said, you should have asked 3 people to review your numbers, which was the smarter monkey. And now I know I'm not submitting anything without getting review. Even now, as a business owner, I am going to hire someone to review financials before I provide a business plan. I'm working on a new project that's going to require some investment, and I'm going to have to get outside counsel. And I'm not going to try to do it on my own. But in the moment, I was talking with the head of HR, and I just said, I can't believe I made that mistake. I can't believe nobody else caught it. I mean, I submitted this paperwork and no one else saw this, but it's my fault. And he says, that's like the cost of an entire position. And I said, well, if you have to cut a position, cut mine. And that's how I resigned. And actually...
But it was almost self-sacrificing.
I think, yeah. And it was really, as my CEO said, that was good leadership. I appreciate you offering that.
Because, and then as you were home alone, for however long it took you till you were back in employment, talk about those monkeys.
I haven't. Okay, honestly, we're being all vulnerable here. I went to work for my husband, who didn't pay me.
They never do.
They never do. But he really needed some help with his CRM. He needed help with his business development plan. And I made some really significant, valuable contributions, and I still do. I mean, I've been his director of marketing ever since he started 10 years ago, but now I'm kind of like, if he needs a spreadsheet done, he comes to me. But it's not a numbers, it's not a budget spreadsheet. But while I was working for him, I was sending out resumes. And I just kept getting decline. And I think this is important to talk about because many people have been in this place. I'm 57. Well, I was 56 at the time. I'm like, am I ever going to get hired again? Will anyone hire someone my age? The monkeys started to tell me I was forced out of my position because of my age. I was the oldest person in the whole company. And I just went, okay, that's a monkey.
Okay.
But I did question my worth. As an executive coach, what I would challenge someone who says the same thing, do you think maybe these doors are being closed because you have a greater purpose? And so when I started to share with people what I'd been doing for my husband with his CRM, I had a female CEO say, oh, can you come do that for me? And I went, oh, yeah, I know the CRM, sure. And then I went to see a recruiter with my resume, asking her, what's wrong with my resume? Why am I getting rejected for every job? And she said, well, I don't know. I think it looks good. I would make some of these changes, but we can talk about that more. But can you help me with my CRM? And I went, okay.
So I guess I'm starting a business. Yeah.
She referred me to another CEO who said, I am keeping my leads on sticky notes. Can you help me with my CRM? Mm-hmm. And so it has built so much that I actually went and got a domain, and I've actually been marketing this. And my husband keeps saying, well, you can't buy a house if you don't get a W-2 job, but I want you to be happy, and I think you can be successful here. I will support you.
Yeah.
Who knows if we'll ever own a house again, because... Yeah.
So I didn't realize that this was so recent, about the job just a year and a half ago or so. When were the monkeys the worst in your life?
Oh.
And remember, the monkeys are these negative voices,
things that you
say to yourself.
It's hard to say worst, because as I've journaled through this failure, and when I say failure, we have to be willing to fail. Mm-hmm. As CEOs making decisions, we have to be willing to fail and know it's okay. I'll go forward. There will be a next thing. And I've had so many junctures in my life, and I can look back at every job. I can look back at relationships that have failed. One of my best friends called me up and said, I just need to manage time in my life, and I'm just going to kind of take you out. And I'm awesome. Who would not want to be my friend? It has.
As a friend?
Yes.
You don't take people out as friends.
She took me off her Christmas list. Well, and people kept saying, that's her problem, not yours.
That is a little awkward.
I have a lot of friends who love me.
Yeah. And I could not talk to a friend for 3 years, and when I talk to them, it'd be exactly the same.
Oh, no, she took me off her Christmas list. And I think that was the hardest time, when I thought, how many people have unfriended me, or how many people want to unfriend me because I'm a real jerk, or I'm insensitive, or I don't pay attention, or whatever reason. It started making me analyze, how good am I as a friend? How good am I as a wife? How good am I as a mom? Which led to the fact, we have a family that jokes around, they're sarcastic a lot. And when they start to kind of pick on me, I started to really internalize it. And my 20-year-old daughter just asked me last week, Mom, I have a lot of happy memories as a kid growing up, but I remember you would often just disappear. Like, we'd be joking around, having a good time, and you would go upstairs and take a bath. And I remember feeling like, my kids don't like me. And my husband teases me so much, he must be like really internally mad at me, and he won't tell me. And that wasn't their intention.
Right.
But that's how I read it. And it's because of the rejection in my childhood. All those early roots, I didn't know what to do with them.
So when you were in that bathtub, what were you saying to yourself?
Lord, please just help me to figure out how to be a good person. Help me figure out. It was never anyone else's fault. It was always my fault. And it is still my knee-jerk reaction. If something happens and I have to analyze what went wrong with here, I always analyze myself first. And today I had a breakthrough, actually. I don't know why it happened today. Well, I've been a Christian for 44 years. I've been having quiet times and praying and spending time with God. And I'm like, when is this going to work, God? There's this prayer I do every morning. I roll over on my stomach and I pray Psalm 139, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any way that's offensive in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. I'm always analyzing myself first, and I'm never stopping to ask why that best friend unfriended me. What's wrong with her?
Right.
It's always what's wrong with me. And so I added to the prayer this morning, try me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there be any offensive way in me, and help me to understand them when it's not mine to own. If it's not mine to own, like in the case of the friend, if it's not mine to own in the case of somebody in the workplace who is just unusually not caring or unusually whatever, I can pivot faster knowing, oh, I just got a download. This is not mine to own. But it requires staying connected.
Yeah.
We have to stay connected in order to get that. Otherwise, we're operating off our instincts, which as a CEO, that's horrifying.
Which is ego and fear and, am I going to make the right decision? Am I going to,
Well, and CEOs who live and operate out of ego are insecure.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we realize that, then we can actually work with a controlling, dominating CEO and say, internally we can say, I would like for you to resolve that insecurity one day. And externally we can deflect the barbs. And actually, this is why we need conversation in the workplace where there's a trusted person to talk to. Because we can say, I don't think she really meant it that way. I think maybe she's struggling with something. Maybe what you can accept is this, and the rest of it you don't own.
Yeah.
So we need each other to tell those stories.
So give us a summary of Crazy as Usual, the book, and we'll definitely have the link down in the description.
Yay. Yay. Can I show you?
Yes.
You've seen a copy of my book. I designed this cover and I sent it to a designer who made it much better. But Crazy as Usual has been a work in development for 20 years. And it's taken many different forms. And I've written and rewritten it because I found it to be it's gone everywhere from oh, woe is me to my crazy mother, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book. Until when I left that job last year, I got this sense of certainty. This is the time to write the book. Because as an executive woman, I started to experience what makes me feel crazy. And I know I'm not alone.
Yep.
So every chapter starts with a conversation between two executive women, actually one retired CEO and a junior executive who's rising in her role. And they're just talking about the monkeys. They're talking about things that happen in work, in life. How do I figure this out? How do I harmonize things? They're just having a conversation. And I guarantee you, one of my sisters read the manuscript and said, no one talks like this. And I said, that's exactly why the world needs this book.
Yeah.
And if we don't showcase how we can have a normal conversation about things that feel weird or crazy, then we keep it bottled inside and we can't thrive. We can't let the world see how brilliant we are because we're too busy trying to cover up the truth and appear to be something we're not. So
Absolutely.
It has some truth packed in there, some little data points at the end of every chapter, but these two women meet every Friday at 5. So now I have, I promised my husband that I will not have Fridays at 5 every Friday at 5 for the rest of my life. So this year I started having 4th Fridays at 5, where we go to a woman-owned business establishment. We do a live podcast interview, and we just sit and drink beer or wine and talk about the monkeys.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it. So can I have this copy and will you sign it for me?
I will love
Absolutely.
to sign.
And I told you I have ADD, so I will have to wait till the audiobook to really embrace it.
So you've inspired me to create the audiobook.
Yeah, I think it's time to do the audiobook.
Maybe you should put in a vote in with Camille to give me a discount.
Yeah. And it would be great where the executives kind of talk back and forth, and so therefore you would need that second voice, and Camille does really well with that.
I actually want 3 voices.
Oh, okay.
Because there's me as the narrator, and then there's the 2 executives.
Okay. Yeah.
I really think that we need 2 different voices for those, but I need to trust that they can read my mind. Because my sense of humor is so punchy, you've got to read it right.
And how long have you and Camille been friends?
10 years.
Yeah, so she could do it.
I bet she could do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know. I didn't think of asking Camille to read.
Yeah, because she read my book and then interviewed me. And so, yeah, she did a great job. She's really, really good. So.
Okay.
This has been great. Crazy as usual. The information's down at the bottom. And thank you, Donna.
Yay.
This was it.
Thank
And I didn't make
you.
you cry.
Oh.
I tried, but you, yeah.
Nope, it's impossible. No, it is possible.